Looking at Ukraine. And again, I will tell you right up front, I will make some mistakes. I will make some mistakes. And I know it's going to happen no matter how much I try. Because the name of this country has changed in terms of what we say in English. The country name is Ukraine. However, when I was growing up and when I was going to college and everything, we never called it Ukraine. We called it the Ukraine. And so from time to time when I talk about the country, you will hear me use the word the Ukraine. The in front of it. Technically today that is not correct. However, you will hear me say it because that's what was imprinted in my mind. Now, ladies and gentlemen, remember, you don't put your feet on desks, not on your rack, not on the rack in front of you. I will have to do the same thing that I do in other hours and tell you this. If I see you with your feet on the desks in front of you, you will be standing for the remainder of the hour, which would not be fun. So please keep your feet off there so that we can keep the desks in as nice of condition as possible. Okay, Ukraine, or in Ukrainian, Ukraina. And if you notice, they use a different what than we do in the United States for their language. They use a different alphabet, yes. Their alphabet is very similar to Russian, but it has a couple extra letters in it, such as this I with two dots above it. Or E sound. Ukraina, 13-4. So, basics. You have your basics chart ready to go. Let's take a look. Ukraine. Let's compare it to Minnesota. Land area, 1 less than, 2 greater than. 1 less than, 2 greater than. Less than, greater than, less than, greater than. 1 less than, 2 greater than. Ooh, it's almost unanimous. Yes, it is larger than Minnesota. It's about 3 times the size. Gesundheit. It's about 3 times the size of Minnesota. What about population? 1 less than, 2 greater than. Hands above your head, remember? Less than, greater than, less than, greater than. Think about it. Less than, greater than. Think about your reading for today. Less than, greater than. Remember, hands are above your head, not next to it. Not next to it. Above means above. It is, as most of you know, larger than Minnesota. It's about 9 times the size of Minnesota in terms of population. With a population density of 78.9 people per square kilometer. So it's more dense than Minnesota, more dense than the United States on a whole, but it is not as dense as many of the other countries in Europe that we've seen, with population densities over 100 people per square kilometer. Anybody make a prediction about arable land and be able to say why you make that prediction? Predictions about arable land and why you would say that. Rachel? Okay, you say it's going to be a high amount of arable land because most of the country is made up of the North European plain. And when the North European plain gets into Ukraine, what's it called? Your reading told you it had a special type of name for it. It's a special kind of plain. A rolling plain with some trees, very, very, very rich soil. In Ukrainian and Russian, they call them chernozem, which means black because the soil is black. The steppe, yeah, they call it the steppe. And so arable land is, boom, high. 53.8% of their land area is used for growing crops each year. Languages, there are 2. Who can give me one of them? you were listening, I gave you a hint on one already. Bailey? Ukrainian is one of them. And the other one? And Russian, yes. Ukrainian and Russian. Ukrainian can be found in the central and western part of the country. Russian can be found in the east. Life expectancy. Whoa, look at that. 62 for men, 75 for women. Not the best life expectancy around, but ladies still live longer. And GDP per capita. Remember how I said those countries in Eastern Europe, their GDP per capitas were low because of what? What was causing their GDP per capitas to be low? Because their countries had been controlled by the Soviet Union. Good. Now, Ukraine wasn't controlled by the Soviet Union. It was part of the Soviet Union. Anybody want to guess or make a prediction about their GDP per capita? If it wasn't only controlled, it was actually part of the Soviet Union. Doug? You think it's going to be higher? Okay, so we have two ideas. We have one, it's going to be higher, or two, it's going to be lower because they're a new country and they're just trying to build up their economy. GDP per capita, ladies and gentlemen, 7,400. It is low. It is low. Part of that is because it was part of the Soviet Union, and part of that is due to the fact that it's heavy on agriculture. Heavy on agriculture with that amount of arable land. Farmers tend not to get rich. Okay, here we go. We're going to start with a little history first, just to give you an idea of where this is coming from. Ukraine, before World War I, before we had that Serb terrorist take out the Archduke, before Serbia went, na boo boo, our friend will come and protect us. Before World War I, Ukraine had switched back and forth between many different countries. Sometimes it was part of Poland. Sometimes it was part of Russia. Sometimes it was part of Turkey. It had not been a separate country since way back around 900 or 1000. So it hadn't been really a separate country for about 800 to 1,000 years. It was always part of another country. After that, that would be Poland, Russia, or Turkey. The name Ukraina or Ukraine has a meaning. Ukraina, a krai is an edge. Ukraina literally means the land at the edge or the borderland. Sometimes some people might call it the frontier. It was like the Wild West of Europe. Not a lot of people, lots of open space. You could go there and get lost, and nobody would be able to find you. 1917. Something happens in Russia. They have a revolution, and the Soviet Union is created. So between 1917 and 1991, it is part of what is called the Soviet Union, controlled by Moscow. It was during this time that the dictator of the Soviet Union, for quite some time, a guy named Stalin, decided he was going to try to kill as many Ukrainians as he could. in a 3-year period or so, he basically ordered the collection of all the food from Ukraine and sent it to other parts of the Soviet Union so that the people in Ukraine had none. Stalin killed more people than Hitler. Ukrainians ended up eating bark off of trees, making soup from leather shoes and belts, eating their leather belts, digging up and eating grass. Millions upon people died. You'll learn more about that in English next year when you look at genocide. 1991, what happens? What happens in 1991 for Ukraine? Sammy? They become a free... Starts with the C? Country, yeah, they become a free country. They are independent. They become their own country. And their new country is called Ukraine, Ukraina. So that brings us to today. A quick history of Ukraine. Now, Ukraine is a large country. Let's take a look at its physical landscape. And really, this isn't going to be too difficult because much of Ukraine is similar to itself. In the vast majority of the country, it is made up of what landform? Most of the country is made up of what landform? That starts in France, goes through Luxembourg, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, all the way through Poland, Ukraine, Russia, until it runs into the Ural Mountains. We have talked about this before. It's why Ukraine has 53% of its land arable. That would be, Grant, a North European plain, yes. You hear me say this a lot. It is the major landform in Europe that has a lot to do with the economic activity and with history, being able to travel from one point to another easily. North European plain. And your book called the North European plain a special kind of plain when it's in Ukraine. It's a little drier in this part. It's a little hotter. That was called the steppe. Yes. Yes, it is the steppe. It's not the steppe. It's just called the steppe. And the steppe, or the North European plain, here has rich black soil. Anybody here have a garden at home? Maybe not right now because it's winter or fall, but now. Or have potted plants at home? Maybe you don't, maybe your parents do. What's the color of the dirt that has the most nutrients? What color is the dirt that you put plants in if you want them to grow the best? What color is that dirt? What color is that soil? Connor? Black. Most of Ukraine is made up of this rich black soil. The blackness comes from plants and that decay and give nutrients to the soil. Your book gave Ukraine a nickname. Anybody remember the nickname from the book? The blank of Europe. The blump 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 of Europe. The bloop 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 of Europe. That would be the breadbasket of Europe. Yes. Because of the possibility of utilizing all that rich land. If they used all that rich land and used modern techniques, they could feed everybody in Europe and have extra. Now, Ukraine also has many rivers. Can anybody name the main one that you had to put on your map? It travels from Belarus down through the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, all the way down to the Black Sea. It has a funny name because many of you want to add an extra E that isn't there. And that name would be the Dnieper. The Dnieper. D-N-I-E-P-R. Dnieper. It's sort of hard to say the D-N together. Dnieper. Hard to say the P-R together. Dnieper. And in the west, what do you got? The west or southwestern part of the country, you have one other landform that's on your map that can be found in southern Poland, that can be found north of Hungary, that sort of curves around from Czech Republic to Slovakia into Romania. That would be the Carpathian Mountains. Yep. You have the Carpathians in the west or the southwest. It all depends on your perspective in terms of what you call the west, what you call the southwest. If I bring up a map, you can see the Carpathian Mountains here in the west. But if you call it the southwest, you're all the way west in the southern portion of that, near Uzhhorod, Chernihiv, Hora, Huberta. Hora is Ukrainian for mountain. So you have the mountains over here, and the rest of this is the plain. And here's the Dnieper, misspelled on this map with that extra E. Landscape. Mostly the North European plain or the steppe. Mountains in the far west. The main river, the Dnieper. So far, so good? So, let's take a look now at the economy. Who can tell me one part of their economy? One part of their economy. Thinking about something that we've already talked about today. Has to do with its landforms. Has to do with the basics chart. Economy, economy, economy. 4. Agriculture, yes. And you're looking at part of it. Got agriculture and doctors, lawyers, teachers, banks, stores. All that stuff fits into the category of service industries, yes. Service industries and agriculture. Most of it is service industries and agriculture. However, in the east, over along the border with Russia, there's yet another part of their economy. You read about it. Region over by the Don River, the Donetsk region. What was it? Anybody remember? Starts with the C. Same thing that you can find in southern Poland, in the mountains. Starts with a C. Same thing in the United States that you can find in West Virginia, Northern Virginia. Starts with a C. 4-letter word. 4-letter word allowable to be said in school. Not a bad 4-letter word. Coal, yes. Coal mining in the east. There's coal mining in the east, near the Russian border, but the rest of the country is mainly agriculture with service industries. Agriculture and service industries, coal mining in the east. They have lots of accidents in their coal mines. Lots of miners lose their lives. You know, I didn't ask this question earlier, so I'm going to ask it now. What are two things you can tell me about Ukraine just by looking at this slide? Two things that you can tell me about Ukraine just by looking at this slide. Give me one of them. Give me one of them. Victor. No, we're not going to look at the government quite yet, but what can you tell me? No. Colin? It is not part of the EU, even though it would like to be. It is not part of the EU and does not use the euro. It is not part of the EU and it doesn't use the euro. Good. Now, it is a republic. It is not a federal republic, it is simply a republic. It has a president that is elected by the people. But it also has a prime minister selected from its Congress. So it's sort of a mix between our federal republic and the parliamentary democracy. What's the capital of Ukraine? What is the capital of Ukraine? And there are many different spellings for this simply because they use a different alphabet. Logan? Kiev, yes. Normally we say Kiev, they say Kiev. In Polish they say Kyiv. Kiev, just like anybody ever hear of chicken Kiev? Chicken Kiev is good. I had real chicken Kiev when I was there. Don't know how they make it, but they actually had a chicken bone as the handle for it, so that you could actually eat it on a stick. Chicken Kiev. Okay, let's take a look at the people. What are the people in Ukraine? They're the same as Poles, Czechs, Sorbs, Bosnians, Serbs, Croats, Slovenes, but not Albanians, not Magyars. What are they? They are Slavic, or they are Slavs. Yes. They are Slavs. They are a Slavic people. Based on your reading, what is their religion? I'll give you a hint. It's related to the religion of Greece. It's related to the religion of Serbia and Montenegro. It is a two-word answer. Jordan. Greek Orthodoxy in Ukraine? No, not quite. You're halfway there, though. Ukrainian Orthodoxy. Yes. Ukrainian Orthodoxy. Ukrainian Orthodoxy is their religion. Similar to Greek Orthodoxy, similar to Serbian Orthodoxy, but it is its own. Ukrainian Orthodoxy. And one thing about Orthodox churches is they have a lot of these golden domes, like on this church that you see here. Lots of golden domes and lots of paintings on the walls, inside and out. And I'll show you some of these pictures on the inside in a moment. Languages. In the basics chart, we went through the languages. And if you were paying attention, I even told you where they were located. What language is used in the central part and the western part of the country? The central and western part of the country, the language spoken is Ukrainian. Good. In the central and western portions. What is the other language spoken then? You should be able to give me the other language that's spoken and where it is spoken. In the central and western part, you have Ukrainian. What is the other language and where is it spoken? Yes. Russian in the east, correct. Over by the coal mines, along the Don River, in the Donetsk region. Yes. Good. We've done the landscape, we've done the history, we've done the economy, we've done the government, we've done the people. Now, because Ukraine is a young country, it battles with a lot of different problems. But it has two major problems that not a lot of young countries have to deal with. So we're going to look at two of their problems, because these are not normal kinds of problems. New countries tend to have problems with their economies, okay? They tend to have problems creating a government that works. Those aren't the problems that are facing Ukraine today. One of the problems facing Ukraine is something that happened when it was part of the Soviet Union back in 1986. Hands are going up already. Good. While it was part of the Soviet Union in 1986, they had problems with a power plant located in a place called Chernobyl. Chernobyl was, and still is, a nuclear power plant. It is a nuclear power plant that melted down. When you use nuclear power, you're basically controlling a nuclear reaction that can get very, very hot, and that creates steam that turns the turbines to produce electricity. But you have to keep that reaction cool, otherwise it will get out of hand and melt everything around it and let radiation escape. This is exactly what happened in 1986. They were running an experiment. This kind of reactor did not have a lot of backup systems, and so the water that was meant to keep everything cool failed. And so it heated up and started fires. And it is the worst nuclear accident in the world. And the problem is, they didn't tell anybody about it when it happened. When it had a meltdown and sent tons of radioactive material into the atmosphere, they didn't let anybody know. They didn't let the people that lived right down the street from the plant know. They didn't let the world know. Some scientists in Sweden had a Geiger counter, had a machine that tested radiation, and suddenly the needle started going haywire, went off the scale. And so they contacted the Soviet Union and said, what are you guys doing over there? Our radiation meter just went off the scale. That was the only time the Soviet Union, at that point, eventually said, yes, we had an incident with our nuclear power plant. The people outside the country knew it before the people inside the country. And they still didn't tell their people. They evacuated the people in the area. Chernobyl is located up here north of Kiev, right along the border with Belarus. The radioactive cloud spread throughout the world. Here is a map of Europe. The darker the red, the more radiation as a result of the accident. Where it is dark red, you don't want people living there. Notice, it wasn't just at Chernobyl here in the Ukraine. but also to the west, to the east, all the way up. See Sweden and Norway and Finland, even down Austria. I have friends that said that the mushrooms in Poland glowed at night due to the radiation. Yes. The radiation you can't get rid of. You have to wait for it to die off. There are parts of Belarus and Ukraine that nobody can live for many thousands of years now. They are still dealing with the birth defects from it. They did evacuate the people in the general area of the accident. They did take the people out of there 2 days after the accident, after they had been exposed. There are stories of cities in the Soviet Union that never had fresh fruit, suddenly getting fresh apples. And so everybody ran and stood in line and bought all these apples because they had never had them before. And they were dirt cheap. There were places in Siberia that didn't normally get meat, beef. Suddenly, there's tons of beef coming in and everybody is able to buy it, cheap. It was only afterwards that they realized that all the food they were eating was radioactive and could make you sick. The government was shipping it to other parts of its country, other parts of the Soviet Union, to get rid of it without telling the people the dangers. Children are still born with birth defects today, and I'll show you pictures later. And it's not something to laugh about. There are many birth defects of animals as well as humans. Many people died. The firefighters that went in to put out the fires lasted maybe 2 weeks before they died of radiation sickness and cancers. Still today, high ratios, high proportions of cancers can be found in this area. The plant today is still radioactive, but they put a little cover over it. They sealed it in cement and steel to try to keep the radiation contained. Another part of the plant is still operating. Only half of it got shut down. There's a problem because that containment, that cover that they put on it, it was done poorly, very low quality materials, and so it's beginning to leak. Rainwater is seeping in, and when the rainwater hits the radioactive material that's so hot still, it turns into water vapor. Water vapor seeps out through the cracks and into the atmosphere and continues to poison. Problem is, you saw Ukraine's GDP per capita. Does it have a lot of money? No. So it's looking for help. It's looking for help because it does not have the money to fix this. And it is not just a problem in Ukraine. The country of Ukraine didn't even do this. This was the Soviet Union. But if they don't do anything about it, it poisons not only the air around Ukraine, but also Belarus, and also the world. Because once it goes up in the atmosphere, it goes around the world and continues. Grant. That might be part of it. That might be part of it, why the life expectancy is so low. Plus, it's a very rural country. A lot of people don't live in cities. That's one of the problems. Another part of the problem is politics, because the country is divided politically. The people are divided. And if you remember, when we looked at the languages, the country is divided by language. You got Ukrainian in the central and western, and we have Russian in the east. That's how they're divided politically, too. The country's biggest question is, who do we be friends with? Should we be friends with the West, such as the EU and the United States? Or should we be friendly to Russia, the East? And just like the country is divided by those languages, it is the same kind of division politically. The eastern area is friendly to Russia. The eastern area is friendly to Russia. My question is why? Why would the eastern part be friendly to Russia? Why would the eastern part be friendly to Russia? Yes. They were a part of Russia at one time, yes. Any other reasons? Nate? Russia's powerful, okay. Any other reasons? They're closer to Russia, good. Yeah. They are Russians in the eastern part. They speak Russian. Good, all very good reasons why. This part of the country, Luhansk, Donetsk, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkiv, very close to Russia, not Russian ties. Western areas want to be friendly to Poland, to the United States, and the EU. Why? Why do you think the Western area would want to be friendly to Poland, the US, and the EU? Yes? The EU and the West is richer than they are, so it would boost their economy. Certainly one reason. Any other reasons? Yeah. Okay, there's a lot of people over there and they're powerful like Russia. Any other reasons? Who used to own this area? Who used to own Western Ukraine? 1500s, 1600s. Victor? No. Before Soviet Union. Way back hundreds of years ago. Doug? Poland used to own all this area. And so there are still Polish people that live there, still Polish connections. Also, geographically, it is closer to the EU than to Russia. All those areas. The current government is pro-West, meaning they like the EU, they like Poland, they like the United States. So currently, the government is pro-West. But that can change at any election. The Soviet Union controlled this area. Now the Russians dislike the current government. In Russia, the country of Russia does not like the current government. They actually tried to assassinate its president when he was running for office. They deny it, but they attempted to assassinate him because they used a poison that only two countries have access to, the United States and Russia. Here's what the guy looked like during the election campaign, before he was poisoned, before they tried to kill him. Here's what he looks like after the poisoning. It's a special kind of poison that was put in his food. Doesn't take a lot. That's the way he looks forever now, as a result of the poisoning. He was lucky enough to have been in the West, where they treated his poisoning, and they caught it in time before it killed him. The Russian Secret Service, formerly known as the KGB, did this to him. Now, so now we're going to take a look at some pictures of Ukraine, specifically of the capital, which is Kiev. Kiev is located on what major river? River that you had to put on your maps. river that has that strange spelling where you think there would be an E, but there really isn't one towards the end. Yes. Correct, the Dnieper. The Dnieper River flows through Ukraine, through Kiev, all the way to what? Yep, the Black Sea. Good. The streets in Kiev are wide. Kiev is a surprisingly very clean city. It is a beautiful city. It's very, very clean. That was one of the things that surprised me the most about it when I was there. Wide streets that can handle many lanes of traffic. Here you see going down one of the main roads in Kiev, 6 lanes, 3 in each direction. Here you see some domes. This is actually an underground mall. There are stores underground. You see the entrance here. You see some people that have walked up on the left-hand side. That's the entrance. The mall is underground, and these are like skylights that you can see light shining down into the mall underneath. This is a monument to Ukraine's independence. This is called Independence Square, and you'll see in the background part of the mall as well, those windows there. Now, if you take a look at this, this is called a Lavra. This is a complex of over 80 buildings where monks live. It is a religious site. What do you notice? What have you noticed about all these churches and all these religious buildings that we've seen from different parts, be it Ukrainian Orthodoxy or Serbian Orthodoxy? What do you notice about all these churches? Yeah, they have golden domes. Golden domes, very typical of Orthodox churches. On the left, you have St. Andrew's. On the right, you have the bell tower there. I believe that's coming up into either St. Michael's. I think that's bell tower to St. Michael's and not St. Sophia's. Here is, I believe that is St. Michael's. Or is that St. Sophia's? Actually, that's St. Sophia. That is St. Sophia's in Kiev. So that was the St. Sophia's bell tower. I apologize for the picture. It was raining that day. But you still see how brightly colored the buildings are and the gold on the top. And on the inside as well. Lots of gold. It's sort of a dark interior, lots of candlelight, lots of gold, paintings all over the place. It's meant to sort of, as you step in, to sort of give you a feeling of power, dominance. Again, gold everywhere and painting everywhere. Every little part of the walls have to be painted. These buildings in Greek Orthodoxy, Russian Orthodoxy, Serbian Orthodoxy, the Orthodox churches don't have a lot of stained glass, but they do have lots of paintings, and that's how they told the stories of the Bible. Going up one of the towers here, looking down at inside the Lavra, inside the complex of buildings where lots of monks live. You see, the Lavra is located right on the river, the Dnieper River, and you look across the way, we have old on this part of the city, and then over along the way you have all the apartment buildings in the new part of town. There's a major bridge. You see the bridges connecting the apartment buildings of the new part of town to the old part of town. In order to walk around in certain parts of the Lavra, women can't wear pants. They can't wear jeans, they can't wear shorts, or their skirts have to be long enough. So, you can rent wraps to go around you so that it's like you're wearing a skirt. Men have to have long pants. Women have to have their heads covered with a scarf. Why? It's tradition, it's part of the religion, it's part of being respectful. It's just like you would normally not go to church on Sunday wearing a bikini or wearing a Speedo, that kind of thing. It's being respectful of the traditions. So you rent a scarf or buy a scarf, you rent or buy a wrap that goes around you so that you can go down. And we actually go down into the catacombs where the old monks are buried. The heads of the monasteries are buried. They're sort of mummified. And I tried to take some pictures. Not all of them turned out, but here's one part down there, some kids lighting candles. I tried to take some pictures of the mummies themselves, but those pictures did not turn out because you're not supposed to use flashes. You're not even supposed to be taking pictures. Don't tell anybody. There again, you see the old with the new. The apartment buildings are not very nice in the former Soviet Union, Ukraine, Belarus, Russia. Here is a World War II memorial. It's called Rodina Mat, or Motherland. It's in honor of the victory in World War II. There is a museum at the base of that, and yes, many of you saw this when we did the Google Earth activity. And if I zoom in closer, again, you'll see my friend is standing up in this location right there. So you get a chance to see how tall that thing is. It is metal. It is steel. And it is a memorial to World War II's victory. Yes, they have McDonald's. And here's what it looks like on the inside. McMenu, Big Mac menu, double cheeseburger menu, McChicken menu, Fish McMenu, Chicken McNuggets menu. So they have extra value meals, and what do you think this says? Dziękujemy. Yeah, it means thank you in Ukrainian. Dziękujemy. The next pictures might be a little graphic, so please, if you don't want to look at them, that's fine. These are pictures of children that have birth defects as a result of the radiation from Chernobyl. These children are from Ukraine and Belarus. Birth defects that affect the brains, the heads, the arms, the legs. A lot of these children end up being put in orphanages because the parents just can't pay for all the time it takes to take care of these kids. They can't stop working, they need to work, and they can't afford a full-time caregiver, so oftentimes when these children are born, they are sent straight to an orphanage. It takes a lot of help, a lot of care. This woman is actually a volunteer. If you take a look at her shirt, she is from a Western country, and I don't know if she's an American or if she's British or what, but she is volunteered to come to Ukraine to help take care of kids that suffered the birth defects. And so it's still causing radiation, it's still causing cancers today. Nuclear power can be safe if you have enough safeguards. Soviet Union cut the safeguards to make things cheaper, and this was the result. The world's worst nuclear accident in Chernobyl.